This is the Youthful and Useful podcast by Leap Africa.
There are a lot of that women take because they don't have any other means of survival. So they remain within abusive relationship because they seem not to be able to have a way out of it. So the more economic empowered you are, yes, it doesn't 100% translate. Of course, people will argue, but the statistics is small compared to so many other people where the only reason they are still holding on to those abusive relationships because they are not economically empowered. You have 1,000 women gathered in a hall, and then you give all of them 20,000 naira to go and add to their business. So what impact will 20,000 naira make to that business?
Hi everyone, good afternoon, good morning, good evening from wherever you're joining us from. My name is Oroluwa Akinsoya, and here again with you to host this episode of the Youthful and Useful podcast. This particular series is one of the series tailored towards the International Women's Day for all things women and girls accelerating action. And together we are celebrating with all the women. And I'm not here by myself in the studio today. I have someone who has featured on this series before in the gender policy and leadership section. If you haven't watched it, I encourage you to please go back, just scroll up and look for that section and watch it, and you'll be enriched. But I'm here with none other than our guest from Braveheart Initiative, the founder, the CEO of very many years. Her name, none other than Priscilla Osiobaifo. Welcome to the studio once again.
Thank you. My pleasure to be here already.
Are you happy to be here?
Yes, I am.
Why are you happy to be
because
here?
it's Women's Day celebration.
Yeah, right. It's Women's Day celebration. So today we'll just be talking a lot about economic empowerment and also wellness of women and a little bit about policy and advocacy, right? So I'll just start off very quickly on what does it mean? I know you work in a rural community, but what is the context around working in a rural community?
Okay, so usually we say rural urban, but we know there's what they call semi-urban. There's always a middle ground in this situation. It's just the way people will tell you there's upper and lower. But some of us will come and tell you we are neither upper or lower, we're in the middle class. So working in a rural community comes with its own complexities. Oftentimes they are more relegated, more marginalized, more excluded. And, in the mantra of the SDGs where we say leave no one behind. And that's why you can see that these days we seem to be making more advocacy and making more case for communities that are classified as being rural so that their voices can be heard, their contributions to national discourse can also be fed, and all those. But one major challenge currently with rural areas is technology. There is a big advancement as regards to technology in the cities and in the urban areas, but that has not really trickled down to rural communities as we expect. Till now, there are still a lot of communities that are totally cut out. You are using 5G. Some people are still using Edge in 2025. Yeah. And some areas, there are no network at all. So by the time you see a 14-year-old talking about certain software and certain tools that the person is using just by the privilege of the environment that that person is situated compared to the other person, not by any fault of him or her, but just by the geographical location that the person is situated per time.
Interesting. So how does entrepreneurship help women, since the focus is women, right? So how does entrepreneurship help women to regain or claim power?
Economic empowerment for me is central to all issues around inequalities, especially gender inequalities. When I'm economically empowered, there are so many, they ask, what did you bring to the table? There's always that rhetoric, although we know within the context by which the question is asked.
Yes.
So, and I feel that an economically empowered woman has a better negotiation power, whether it's within politics, whether it's within the home. And I tell you that politics is everywhere. Of course, most time when we use politics, we use the word loosely. There are a lot of family politics. There's a lot of home politics. So anyone who really wants to attribute some source of legitimacy, the one we use the word power, access to power, then entrepreneurship needs to be promoted within that context. The more economically empowered women we have, the more they are less vulnerable to certain forms of violence, especially financial and physical violence. I'm going to give an example. There are a lot of that women take because they don't have any other means of survival. So they remain within abusive relationship because they seem not to be able to have a way out of it. So the more economic empowered you are, yes, it doesn't 100% translate. Of course, people will argue. We've seen professors, we've seen business tycoons that are female and still remain in abusive relationships. But the statistics is small compared to so many other people where the only reason they are still holding on to those abusive relationships because they are not economically empowered. So it kind of give you a certain level of financial autonomy and a certain level of independency of thoughts and actions.
So in other words, women empowerment, since that is the focus, women empowerment is directly correlated to
Yes.
freedom.
Is integral.
Directly correlated to freedom. So still on the subject of entrepreneurship, so what are those unique challenges that befall women or female entrepreneurs?
Okay, so I will still fall back to technology. You can see the whole empowerment of small and medium scale enterprises in the few years. There are a lot of projects that is targeting at little businesses. I'm using the word little or small businesses, but all of them are really tied to online platforms. You see a lot of young women now using Instagram, and other social media platforms to promote their businesses. And for me, it has made significant change around businesses or business models. And we believe that the more women are empowered with digital literacy,
Okay.
either at the urban level or at the community level, then they can better compete.
So
with
digital
other competitors.
illiteracy is
Yes,
then the challenge.
yes.
Okay.
Digital literacy, it's the solution.
Why
Why digital illiteracy
is the
is the
challenge.
challenge.
Got it.
Also, is that there's a lot of lip service by government around support for women. So most time it's done in a very tokenistic manner. So you come and you say you have a partnership with the Directorate for Employment, for instance, and then you are using 2 weeks to train someone on fishery, and then you give the person 250,000 as the capital to go do it. Between me and you know that 250,000 will go any long way in fishery, but oftentimes that's all that is available at that particular point in time. But can we begin to think more, systematically about how we empower people? You see a lot of politicians whereby they bring for International Women's Day, you're going to have pockets of empowerment announced everywhere. You have 1,000 women gathered in a hall, and then you give all of them 20,000 naira to go and add to their business. So what impact will 20,000 naira make to that business? Why don't you sit down to really do an analysis of the various form of businesses to know what each of them even need per time? Some people may not even need money at that time. They've grown their own. All they just need is to put their market, make their market more visible. Put them in certain platforms where they are wares. You connect their products to buyers that are in need of those services that they render per time. So it just means that we need to think more comprehensively around entrepreneurship skills for women in rural areas, and also not to forget that their locality alone gives them certain mindset. So self-esteem, self-efficacy, all these conversations around, not limiting yourself to your location also have to be ongoing conversation with young people in rural communities.
Thank you very much for sharing that. I like two things that you said, and you just, touched on those. One is conducting, which is what I took from what you had shared, is conducting a need assessment for the certain businesses. Not all businesses need the same things at certain times. So it's understanding what these women-led businesses need and tailoring the solution to that need. The second thing that really stood out, you did not say it that way, but it stood out to me, is long-term planning, long-term impact versus pockets or short-term interventions that go nowhere. I agree with you, and I mean, I've heard this a lot of times, saying that we can be quite reactive to interventions. We can be quite spontaneous to interventions, but even after all the activities, then what is the impact 3 months after then? What's the impact 6 months after then, 9 months after then? How are we reasoning those things? So I want to tie this now, because you had also mentioned about government. And so what policies Or what do you think is the place of policy making, in intervention for women empowerment?
All right. So when we look at the legislative framework that we have in our country, and I know that the Central Bank of Nigeria seems to be like the reference point for most of anything entrepreneurship, development, either it's for women or it's for young people in general, and the ease of business. But when you look at the tax system in the country and you look at the facilities or infrastructures that are available, government has their specific role to play in a country that our national grid is collapsing every Eke market day. So how do we want businesses to survive? So there are certain infrastructures, basic amenities that government, not even at policy level now, because sometimes they have beautiful policy in this country, but it's
infrastructure
implementing
supply.
of those policies, the implementation of the policies. When you want to come and look for business model, you read some of the most brilliant business model in this country, but bring it down to practical terms and you begin to see that
doesn't
the
work.
challenges are just
Doesn't
overbearing.
work.
So if they can provide some of these things, for instance, you've built capacity of someone and the person is dealing with epileptic power supply, the person decides to turn to what? To generator, increase of fuel or increase of diesel. So all these things are what is making it unease of doing business. And we do not want unease of doing business. We want ease of doing business, because all these social factors and environmental factors, they contribute in a big deal. Also, is also political influences. So there is a new sheriff in town and just decide to make one new rule. They increase taxes arbitrarily, and it's as though you want to cripple the business that is even on a survival mode. So these are all big challenges that people have in this country, and we need to begin to look at these issues holistically and look for ways to suggest to address them.
Interesting. Thank you so much for sharing all of those. So I want us to look at more intricately into the matter of a male-dominated industry, right? So, to a woman out there who is watching and saying, "Hey, yes, I've heard all you said, the policies, but my business is good, my pitch is good, I'm creating value, but I find that I'm in a male-dominated industry, and I find that there's segregation. How do I cope with that?"
You have to navigate the space. It is the reality. There are also women within those space that have done well. So what did these women do to be able to break some of those barriers? They call them glass ceilings. We have had women that have not only broken the ceilings, they shattered the ceilings. So our advice is that those women who have climbed up on the ladder, they begin to stretch out their hands to help
reach out.
other people to come up to the ladder, gradually, face by face, either through mentoring, either through coaching, or any other form of support that they can give to other younger women. But for me, the big news is that the things that we thought that women could not achieve, they've done far more than that.
Absolutely.
And that alone should be a source of encouragement to so many other young women who are aspiring. In Edo State, for instance, we have a young woman, a phenomenal young woman. Her name is Isimeme Ejodame White. She's the founder of Genius Hub, and she has done a lot of innovative and creative work around entrepreneurship development of not just women but young people in Edo State. She has leveraged on technology and has brought a lot of advancements to the entrepreneurship landscape in Edo State by this work that she has done. And she has not limited her work to Benin City. She has expanded her work to even the local areas in Edo State. And for me, I will always talk about women like this. So we can identify this kind of women all across Nigeria and then begin to look at their success stories, read about them. For me, I'm a student of history. So as I look at history, I also look at history. So you look at, history is his story. So history is her story. So when you look at the historical analysis or views about some of these people who have navigated those storms of life that you are just at that stage, then you can borrow some lessons from them and use it.
So climbing on the giants of those who have the shoulders of those who have gone ahead to see further. Okay, thank you so much. So moving away from entrepreneurship and more into wellness. Now, other than economic empowerment, what areas of women's wellness do you think should be prioritized in policy?
Wellness is all around.
I know you are a
Physical
GBV
wellness,
person, so
mental wellness.
okay.
Yes, because I'm even GBV person. That's why wellness is central to me. In the past they just talk about women in business. There's Wimbies, there's Willan. There are so many platforms
Yeah.
for women in Nigeria, and all of them have also integrated wellness into their approach to the work that they do. Because whether we like it or not, our Nigeria context, people will say, "Let Nigeria never happen to you." You've had that slogan.
Phrase
It
before,
shows that there are stressors in this country that if you do not look for how to detoxify and look for how to remain whole, and when I mean whole, not just mentally, physically, and otherwise, then you're going to have a burnout. So many things that you can do. You can drink more water, you can have a fitness regime, you can have more exercise, you can have mind game, but you have to be intentional about what wellness is to you. Is it just to shut down sometimes and just like, I want to rest? Is it my me time? Is it my family time? So people need to conduct those need assessment for themselves. So they need to be a lot of introspection. They need to be a lot of reflection.
Awareness.
Regard what wellness even is to us. But we know that these things are also interrelated. If you do not drink a lot of water, for instance, it can result to headache, and then you are busy taking Panadol for what water would have solved for you. So all these things are linked. So at every time, healthy work balance should be key to us, especially to those hustling and bustling every day in this country.
Thank you so much. We are still here at the studio Leap Africa and still talking with Priscilla, the founder of Brevard Initiative. I just want to interrupt very quickly to say if you have not liked, subscribed, or shared this with someone who would benefit from it, please do so and follow us so that I can get more content like this. So moving on, I want to delve into the matter of research now. And I want to just ask, how does research contribute to shaping gender policies and driving more informed advocacy?
Research has a significant role. The world has moved from just them say. We are the phase of evidence based,
yes.
data-driven programming in the various countries, and it's not limited to Nigeria. So everyone that really needs to advance women's rights needs to begin to look at what the data is saying and inform your planning, your programs, and all your actions on what evidence have shown to be proven to work.
Okay, thank you. So I think I was also hoping to hear maybe a misconception, based on research on what is purportedly reported that is happening versus what is actually the reality.
I think we are not doing well with data collection, data analysis, data triangulation, and even data dissemination. For instance, I will tell you that we need a nexus between the academia and those of us in the field. We seem to want to say, you are a researcher, I am a programmer. We see it happen almost every day. Those in the academia want to carve a niche for them as those being in the academia. So if we have more connectedness in the work that we do. So I'm in my office, I'm doing programming in whatsoever, and I have my work as evidence-based. So the research, I don't have to be a professional researcher, but those little surveys that I do, how does it contribute to shape the programs that I have? So my advice would be that let them be more connectedness in the approach that we use in life, and most of the research or reports that we have should be shared more widely. Our dissemination is still very poor. As a matter of fact, most of the research work that a lot of institutions have is where? In their shelf. That is where it is. A lot of people have not even dug deep. It is when you see somebody else is trying to reinvent the wheel, and you're like, oh, something has been published to this effect like 10 years ago, 15 years ago, but those were not well disseminated. So we need to also begin to look at that. I know that in most of our conferences now, they are encouraging a lot of young people to begin to submit abstracts, just at that small level of engagement in little forms of research. Come showcase your work. Let there be conversations around it. Some of us call it critiques, but yes, it's good to critique your work and give a lot of justification and share those perspectives.
Interestingly, you've already delved into the next question I was going to ask. I'm just going to ask it anyway so you can expound on that. How can more women then become more active participants in thought leadership and influence public discourse?
All right, so we have what we call the thought leaders, is to open the space. So we need more people to get into those spaces. Having closed space does not help anyone. Logical, analytical reasoning is not limited to certain people. It's about the skills. So how can we build more young women? How can we build younger leaders to begin to have deeper thinking processes? Is something that we need to systematically look at, either at the individual level, at the organization level, and also at the community level. But it's just for, sometimes there is this closeness around certain sectors as though it is limited to certain group of people. We need to open that space to get more people to be able to come into that space and engage better. As a matter of in the past, people just look at policy issues to be for selected few. But I tell people, at the end of the day, the policy is going to shape your life.
Absolutely.
So if there is a law in Nigeria today, yes,
your children.
For instance, you can have Lagos State Assembly deliberating on tariff. What did they call it? MTN calls and everything, and you're like, abeg, let me go home. But you are sending text message for 4 naira. You have just sent message, it is now 12 naira. Has that law not affected you? Absolutely. It has. So it's for people to know that anything that happened at the macro level has a way of affecting you at individual level, at organizational level, and at the community level. And for everybody to begin to see policy making and advocacy and conversations around good governance to be a collective responsibility.
Thank you so much, Priscilla. So this is, take it or leave it, it is your sensitization to participation in public matters, in thought leadership, opening up the space, and even giving yourself a voice. Because I feel like sometimes some women may also think, oh, I don't have so much to share. Meanwhile, as they like to say on the streets, a person's point is another person's prayer point. A person's testimony is another person's prayer point.
If you follow, enough is enough. They publicize what they call office of the citizen. Every time we talk about office of the president, office of the legislators, we as a citizen, we also occupy an office.
Yeah.
So how do we make our office to become what? More effective and more efficient?
Yeah.
The call is on us.
Yeah. Absolutely. You've heard it, dear women. At least this is not from me. This is from a fellow woman. So I'd just like to, hand the mic over to you. You already have it though. And just share final words to someone who is watching this, a woman who is watching this. What words would you like to leave her?
So as we commemorate the 2025 International Women's Day, I just want to encourage so many young women out there to believe in themselves, to aspire. There have been women that have crossed certain boundaries that we never expected women to cross. Example is our dearly beloved Okonjo Iweala. And if you see her, then you should be able to know that if she could do it, then you can also do it. And as you also climb the ladder, remember to share wrapper with other women coming after you.
Thank you so much, everyone, for listening. Yet again, this is Leap Africa. We're a youth leadership development organization, and we focus on developing leaders who are dynamic, innovative, and ethical. Till the next time on this podcast, it's bye for now. This is the Youthful and Useful Podcast by Leap Africa.